Familiar situation. You have been learning English, Spanish, German, or maybe French for a year. You know the grammar, you know the words, but as soon as you start to speak, that's it. You forget even your own name. And now, another picture. A party, a window to the terrace, a glass of wine, and you suddenly speak. Not perfectly, but you speak. You joke, you laugh, and most importantly, you are understood. And what was that anyway? Magic? Nope. Science. Today we will talk about why alcohol works as a catalyst for foreign languages and why this is perhaps the most interesting and at the same time the most dangerous life hack in learning. I've been teaching languages for over 10 years now, and during this time I realized one tricky thing. Most people cannot start speaking a foreign language not because they know little, but because they are afraid. Afraid of making a mistake, afraid of their accent, afraid of looking stupid. I didn't invent this. Scientists call it language anxiety. And this is a real condition that's seriously studied. And the most offensive thing, often students who know the grammar and vocabulary of the language best of all in the group speak much worse than the rest, simply because they worry too much about every word flying out of their mouth. And here's the interesting part begins. What does a small dose of alcohol do? It reduces this anxiety, literally on chemical level. To put it very simply, alcohol enhances the effect of GABA. It is a human inhibitory neurotransmitter. Roughly speaking, it muffles the very part of the brain that pressures you. You are going to make a mistake now. Everyone will laugh. Better keep quiet. In 2017, Maastricht University conducted an interesting experiment called Dutch Courage. German-speaking students drank just a little bit of alcohol and after that began to communicate in Dutch with native speakers. So, native speakers rated their speech much higher than that of absolutely sober students. They rated their pronunciation and fluency especially high. Pay attention, they did not rate their grammar better. The grammar of the experiment participant remained the same, but fluency, how freely and naturally a person expresses thoughts, increased. That is, alcohol doesn't make you smarter and doesn't load new words into your head like onto a flash drive. It just turns off an internal sensor, which previously physically prevented you from using what you already know perfectly well. Let's move on to the social side of the issue, because a language is primarily people and communication. Remember how you met someone at a party abroad, or in a bar, or at a dinner in a nosy hotel? There is a special atmosphere there. Everyone is a little relaxed, everyone is open, no one sits opposite with a red pen and counts your grammatical mistakes. In fact, this is an ideal language laboratory. You speak not because it is necessary for a grade, but because you want to, because you are simply interested in the person. And it is in such sincere moments that the language is remembered best. And these aren't my fantasies. Emotional context is really one of the main and fundamental factors of long term memory. Laughed at some joke in Spanish? You will remember it for many years. Met an Italian over good wine? Half a year later, you will remember how he pronounced each word. Let's be honest, this doesn't work always and not for everyone. There are three strict conditions. The first, you must already have a language base. Alcohol doesn't create knowledge out of thin air, it only liberates what is already gathering dust in your head. If you don't know the language, throw this idea away, you will just be confidently silent. Or, what is even more fun, very confidently talk nonsense. Second, a specific dose. That same study I mentioned earlier talks about a very small amount, about 0.2 or 0.4 per ml. This is one glass of wine or one beer. After two or three glasses, everything sharply turns in the opposite direction. Words begin to get uncontrollably confused, reaction drops, and you are absolutely not a polyglot anymore, but simply a drunk person. The third, context. If you sit down at a table alone in front of a textbook, it will not work. You need live communication with people and emotions, with a real task and a desire to convey a thought. Okay, but what if you don't drink or just don't want to use such a life hack? Good news, the mechanism of liberation itself can be reproduced without alcohol. Use role playing games in class. When you sort of play the role of another person, making mistakes becomes less scary because it's not you making mistakes, but your character. Find yourself tandem partners. This is when you teach someone Russian and he in parallel teaches you his language. Initially, there is no pressure there. You are both on equal footing and both make mistakes. And probably the most important thing is the banal habit of speaking, despite the fear of making a mistake. Your brain works like a muscle. The more often you train it, the less it hurts after workouts. Alcohol can only show you once what you are capable of under ideal conditions, but real and measurable progress is when you can speak freely even without it. And finally, everything I talked about today is an interesting scientific fact, But this is by no means a recommendation for action. Alcohol is a psychoactive substance. It easily causes addiction. It systematically hits your entire body. And the lousy part, what starts as one glass for courage before a conversation very easily becomes a daily habit. Thousands of people started exactly like this. You can always learn language, but you can't restore your health. If this was helpful, give it a like, subscribe, and tell me in the comments. Have you ever surprised yourself by speaking a foreign language better than you thought you could? See you in the next videos and good luck!